Hello everybody and welcome from me and Dimitri to this week's Easy 11 Plus live lesson on BODMAS or BIDMAS or even BEDMAS depending what you call it. It's all the same thing, isn't it, Dimitri? Dimitri says he's so bored of this topic, he's studied it so many times. He says, why do we have to do this again? Don't forget that the worksheet for today's lesson is linked in the video description, which is down below the video. And you can download and print off the worksheet. And if you're looking for the worksheets for other lessons I've done, the worksheet is always in the video description. You can always find it there. You can always print it off and, I don't know, throw darts at it or something. Dimitri would claw it. In fact, he'd eat it. He loves eating paper and cardboard. It's one of his favourite things. And then little bits of them get stuck in his enormous beard. He's got a fantastic beard. Yeah, all right, he's off. Let's get started. By the way, check out the links in the video description, especially the stuff about 11 Plus Lifeline, which I strongly encourage you to have a look at, especially if you want to send your work off to me for individual feedback with little videos like this one and voice comments and all that kind of thing to encourage you and to show you exactly how to improve. Have a look at 11 Plus Lifeline. That's Google, 11 Plus Lifeline. Okay, let's look at some BODMAS or BIDMAS. Now, I've done videos on this before, and in fact there's a video specifically about it on the channel from quite a while ago, which has got a very similar cover to this one because I was a little bit short of time when I was preparing this lesson. So you can do some revision there and go through the basic principles. Let's just have a quick recap now. Let's think about it as BIDMAS, which is the acronym that I prefer. BIDMAS. Good, everything's working so far, except that I can't do a D. There we are. BIDMAS. What does this mean? It's the order in which you do things. So the first thing you look at is any brackets, and a lot of what we're going to be doing today is adding brackets so that things work. We look at brackets, then we look at indices. So indices are things like 4 squared, which is 4 times 4. Okay, or 4 cubed would be 4 times 4 times 4. If you don't know about that, it's something you might want to look at, and of course it's covered in lots of other videos that I've got. And then, and this is where people start to misunderstand what this means. The next thing we do is division and multiplication in the order that they occur. Okay? So one of the biggest things, in fact probably the biggest thing that people misunderstand about BIDMAS or BODMAS or BEDMAS is that you don't do division before multiplication. Do we have an example here? We don't have an example up here. Yes, okay, down here. So let's just glance at this as an example. So if you misunderstood this, you'd see D then M and you think, well, I need to do 6 divided by 2, which is 3, and then times that by 3. That is not what you do. You do the division and multiplication in the order that they occur. So here you would do 3 times 6 is 18, divided by 2 is 9. Rather than doing 3 times 6 divided by 2, well, it happens also to be 9, but anyway. And then, crucially, this is the one where it really, really, really makes a mess of things, is that it's addition and subtraction in the order that they occur. So you do not do the addition before the subtraction. So the order is brackets, indices, then timesing and dividing in the order that you see them from left to right, and then adding and subtracting in the order that you see them from left to right. And that's what BIDMAS means. I'll write BIDMAS a little bit lower down here, and I'll add those brackets again as a reminder. Right, now let's have a look at question 24 here. Which of the following statements is false? So what we're going to do, we're going to go through each statement until we find one that doesn't work. So 3 plus 5 times 4. So we need to do division and multiplication first. So we don't do 3 plus 5, which is 8, times 4. We're not doing 8 times 4. We're doing 3 plus 5 times 4. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 3 is 23. Okay? So that one is correct. And you don't need the brackets in here because you do the multiplication first anyway. I've just put them there to show you what we're doing. Next one, 20 minus 5 times 4. So 5 times 4, we do the multiplication first, is 20. 20 minus 20 is nothing, so that's correct. 12 minus 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 12 minus 10 is 2. D, we got a plus and we've got a times, so we do division and multiplication before we do the addition and subtraction. So 6 times 4 is 24. 3 plus 24 is 27. So this one is the incorrect one. It's this one here. And because I don't have an answer space, I'm going to write D and double underline it. Now, because we're almost at the end, let's double check E. 5 times 3 is 15, minus 2 is 13. So that one works. So the one that's false is D. Okay? Very good, everybody. Well done, everybody who said D. That's fantastic. Lots of people getting confused by C, but hopefully you aren't confused anymore. Right. And now we get into stuff that takes a little bit more it's a bit more puzzle-like, let's put it that way. So insert brackets to make the following correct. So what I recommend we do first of all is work out what the answer would be if we don't insert any brackets. So we don't have any brackets or indices, so we're going to do multiplication and division in the order that they occur. First, 3 times 6 is 18, divided by 2 is 9, plus 1 would be 10, okay? But we want to get to 6. Now, what we want to do, we're just going to play around, but we're not going to play around randomly. We're going to think about some of the elements here and what we can do with them. So 3 times 6 is 18. And we know that 6 is a third of 18. So can we find a way to make this 18 and divide it by 3? So we've got 3 times 6 is 18. Divided by 2, it doesn't work, but 2 plus 1 would be 3. So if we say you have to do that first, if we force that to come to the front by putting brackets around it, then that becomes a 3. So 3 times 6 is 18, divided by 3 is 6, and now that works. Now some people will put brackets like this. It isn't wrong, but it's redundant. It's superfluous. Lots of nice words for you. You don't need those first brackets because we're already going to do the multiplication and division in the order that they occur. So 3 times 6 divided by 3. Okay, next one. So what happens if we don't put any brackets in? 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, 4.5. We're not going to get 12 from 4.5 with these numbers. So it'd be 4.5 plus 1 times 4, which is 4. So it would be 4.5 plus 4 would be 8.5. Okay, so that's not going to work. What else can we do with this? What happens? How might we get to 12? 12, we've got a times 4 at the end. So what would we times by 4 to make 12? We times 3 by 4. Can we make a 3 from the first part? So 9 divided by 2 doesn't make 3. 9 divided by 3 would make 3. Oh, we got a 2 plus 1. So hang on, if we do this, now we got 9 divided by 3, which is 3, times 4 equals 12. So that works. So in each of these problems, we have to put brackets around the 2 plus 1 to make it into a 3. And when that becomes a 3, the problem works. So 9 divided by 3 times 4 is 12. Okay? Simple. Carrying on. So this kind of thing so far, it's relatively simple work once you're comfortable with the principles of BIDMAS. And I think that's mainly what this is about. It's about getting comfortable with the principles. But also, I suppose it's a way of thinking. Let's scroll back up a second. So in each of these cases, we didn't just throw brackets in at random. We thought about where we were trying to get to and what clues there might be. So in the first one, we said, well, 6, and we've already made an 18, so can we divide that 18 by 3? In the second one, we said we're trying to get to 12. We got something times by 4, so can we make a 3 to times by 4? That won't always be right. You might have to try a few of those things, but that's the kind of lead-in that can get you towards the answer. Okay, people, calm down in the comments. Just comment on the lesson, guys, and stop. Yes, if somebody swore, don't do that. But also, stop being so obsessed with policing each other. It's like the sort of social media these days. Everyone's, I sound so old saying that, but everybody's just so determined to, catch other people doing things wrong and tell on them. Just let it slide. Let it go. Life's too short. Be calm. 9 times 5 divided by 2 plus 1 equals 15. So what happens if we don't do any brackets? So 9 times 5 is 45, divided by 2. Interesting. 22.5, plus 1, 23.5. That is not right. So we don't want to be dividing an odd number by 2. So we could do 9 times 5 divided by 2, but we're still dividing an odd number by 2. We're going to have 2.5. It's going to be 9 times 2.5. No. In fact, it's going to be the same answer, I think, anyway. What else could we do with this? Well, we want to get to 15. So what happens? 9 times 5 is 45. That's 3 times 15. So can we divide 45 by 3? Yes, we can. Oh, look. It's just like what we've been doing here. It's we're just putting brackets around 2 plus 1 every time. Guys, you don't need to watch this lesson. There's a really simple rule for BODMAS. Whenever you see a 2 plus 1, put brackets around it. Only joking. That is not the rule. That's just coincidence. Okay. Second one. There's no 2 plus 1 here, so we can't even apply that rule. 3 times 7 minus 6 times 4 minus 3. Well, let's have a look at this. 3 times 7 is 21. 6 times 4 is 24. 21 minus 24, minus 3. Minus 3, that's minus 6. That's not the answer. Okay. What else could we do with this? So the problem we got here is if we do it in the normal way, we end up with minusing 6 times 4, which is actually bigger than 3 times 7. So we get into negative numbers. So can we do something so that we aren't doing 6 times 4? We aren't getting anything that big. Well, what happens if we did it like this? So 6 times 4, 24, minus 3 is 21. So then we got 21 minus 21 equals 0. So we're getting closer. It's not minus 6, it's 0. We're nearer, but that isn't it. So the problem here, we're starting to home in on what the problem is. The problem is that when we make this 6 times 4, we get something that's far too large, okay? Like my head. So 6 times 4 is much too big. We don't want that. So can we times 6 by something else? But it says 6 times 4. We can't change that. But we can change that because how about if rather than timesing by 6 times 4, we did 6 times 4 minus 3. What's 4 minus 3? It's 1, okay? 1. And 6 times 1 is 6. So we have 21 minus 6 is 15. So that's the answer. Now, do we need any other brackets? Well, we do that multiplication and that multiplication before we subtract, BIDMAS, and that's what we want. So we don't need any more brackets. We just need these brackets here. So I've got some stray dots here. They are not mathematical. They're just me enthusiastically dotting the page. It's just how I roll. Okay, guys, if you're buffering, as somebody says, it's probably, I hope, your internet connection that's at fault. You could turn down the quality of the image. So go to the cog underneath my head here pretty much on YouTube and go to the quality option, maybe reduce it 1 step and maybe you'll find it better. If the buffering is from my end, I apologize. It would be a sign that my computer is overheating a little bit. That can happen. Okay, put a pair of brackets around 1 step of the calculation to make the answer as small as possible. So this could be a little clearer, but I think 1 step means that you could put brackets around that, but you couldn't put brackets around that because that's 2 steps. Okay? I think that's what it's getting at. Now let's have a look at this without putting any brackets, okay? So 32, so we do the divisions first, right? Because brackets, indices, division and multiplication, and then the addition and subtraction. So start with this. 32 divided by 8 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. So we've got 16 plus 2 is 18. Minus 1 is 17. Okay, so that's going to give us 17. Can we make it smaller than that? So what would happen if we put brackets here? So rather than 8 divided by 2 minus 1, we have 8 divided by 2 minus 1. 32 divided by 8 is 4. Divided by 2 minus 1, that's 1. Then it's 4. 16 plus 4, it's actually got bigger. We've ended up with 20. That's not what we want to do. There's no point putting brackets around any of this, really, because it's not going to make a difference. 32 divided by 8, we're still doing that. We'd be doing that first anyway. Okay. What would happen if we put brackets? So what would you put them here? 32 divided by 4. Okay, 32 divided by 4, we're going to have 8. So we're going to make it bigger. again? Nope. Now, what's the problem here? The problem here is that everything we do, we're always adding it to 16. So we're always starting with this quite large number. 16 plus something. And obviously, again, there's 17 and 20 and 24 and whatever it was. Okay? It's not really helping us. Can we do anything to make this 16 smaller? Well, the division signs are all after the 32. But what happens if we rope the 16 into that? Like that. Okay? So we do 16 plus 32, which is 48, divided by 8, which is 6, divided by 2, which is 3, minus 1 equals 2. And that is a lot smaller than 17. So we got there a little bit sort of, tortuously. But there's, again, a point about the logic of the question here. We're always adding 16 to everything. Can we do anything to make the 16 smaller as well? And the only way to do that is to get that roped into the division by putting brackets around 16 and 32, so we have 16 plus 32 as the thing we divide. And although that gives us a bigger starting number, 48, we're then getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and we end up with a smaller answer. So again, it's a logic problem. You can do it by sort of guessing randomly, but you'll get that faster if you think about it logically. Okay, grand. Someone's recommending a series of unfortunate events, which I don't know, but it's always good to have good recommendations in the comment thread, so thank you to Malini for that. Zenab does 3 separate calculations, but leaves out the brackets in 2 of them. How careless of him. Right. Let's have a look at them. In fact, let's look at the instructions first. How about that? Tick the box beside the calculation that does not need brackets. Okay, so we need to look for the one that works anyway. So look at the first one. We need to do the multiplication first. 1 times 7, that's 7. 2 plus 0 is 2, plus 7 is 9. So that one does not work. It does not equal 21. Next one. 2 plus 0 is 2, plus 1 is 3, plus 7 is 10. That one works. So we put a tick. Make sure you're doing the instructions exactly. Always check the question again. Beside the calculation that does not need brackets, yup, it's that one. It doesn't need brackets. Okay, B. Put 1 set of brackets in each of the other 2 calculations so they are correct. Now, this is one of these situations where, I said earlier on, if you added an extra pair of brackets that aren't actually necessary, the answer's still probably correct. Here that doesn't apply. They've specified they only want 1 pair of brackets, so if you put extra pairs of brackets in that don't need to be there, you will lose credit. Okay, so always be careful to read the question exactly and to do exactly what it says, just like you always do exactly what I say at every point, I'm certain. Anyway, right, one up here. 2 plus 0 plus 1 times 7 equals 21. Now again, we're going to think logically, aren't we? We got a 7 and we got a 21. What do we know about 7s and 21s, folks? Well, we know that 7 goes 3 times into 21. And we know that we got something times 7 is 21. So can we turn all this brouhaha into a 3? Well, of course we can. 2 plus 0 plus 1 gives 3. So all we have to do is put brackets around this so that we don't start by doing 1 times. So we don't start by doing 1 times 7, but instead we start by doing 2 plus 0 plus 1. Because remember, BIDMAS says you do the brackets first. So if you put the brackets in, it forces us to override the multiplication and do the addition first of all. So that works. 3 times 7 is 21. And what about down here? Right, so we got 2 plus 0 times 1 times 7. So what can we say about this? We got a 14 and we got a 7. And we know that 14 is 2 lots of 7. So can we find a way to times this by 2? Well, at the moment it's times by 1. 1 times 7 is 7. And by 0, which would make it 0 because we've got no lots of 1 times 7. So that would all be 0. So we don't want to leave this as it is. And in fact, therefore, we're kind of forced towards the answer because we can't be having 0 times 1 times 7 because then we've got a big fat 0 coming out. 2 plus 0, we can have 2. So we simply have to separate it here somehow. Well, we've got an obvious way to do it. It's to put brackets here. And now let's see whether it works. 2 plus 0, that's 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Times 7, 2 times 7 is 14. So that now works. So in fact, with this one, yeah, you can work out the answer, or you can just do the only thing that doesn't make a complete mess of the answer. And then you end up with the answer, if that makes any sense. Ignore me. Ignore me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, onwards. I quite like this. Hint, there is a quick way. Yes, because otherwise you will have people working out 49 times 37,018 and then working out 51 times 37,018 and then adding them together and... No, don't do that. There is a quick way. What is the quick way? I think the easiest way to spot the quick ways here is to get a bit less mathematical. Stop looking at this as a string of numbers and just think of it as sort of a thing. 49 times 37,018, what is that as a thing? It means we got 49 37,018s. We got 49 of them, people. Okay, 49 of them. Remember that. And on the right, we got 51 of them. So we got 49 of them when we got 51 of them. So how many do we have? We've got 100 of them. What we've got here is 100 37,018s. How do you times something by 100? How do you say that we've got 100 of 37,018? Well, of means times in maths, something I say often in these videos. I say all the same things often. I just repeat myself basically, just endlessly. Anyway, but so does life, so does history, so does the human experience. 100 37,018s, timesing by 100. What do you do? Times by 10, you add a 0. Timesing by 100. Thank you. We add 2 zeros. So we got 100 37,018s. That means 37018 and 2 zeros. Easy as that. 3,701,800. What about down here? That's the same kind of approach. We got, let's just say in English, not in maths. We got 26 37,018s. Take away 25 37,018s. So you got 26 of them, you take away 25 of them. How many of them do you have left? You got one of them. So we got 1 37,018s left. What does that mean? It means we've got 37,018. Now I'm being a little bit flippant in the way I talk about that. But again, there's a really important principle underlying it. Of course, there's always in my lessons, very important principles, so we need to pay attention. Which is that sometimes we can get a bit lost in the numbers, and sometimes it helps to step back a bit and just talk in basic terms about sort of what these numbers mean. Do you remember when you started primary school and you added things by, you had a sort of sheet of paper and they had sort of 3 triangles and then you had 6 triangles? And you had to work out how many triangles there were overall. So you counted the 3 and you counted the 6, and then you added the 3 to the 6. That's kind of what we're doing here. It's going back to first principles. What is this math saying? All right, onwards. Someone says, stop the cookie chat. And then someone says, why? I think that's quite a good question. Why stop the cookie chat? I can think of worse chats to be having in the comments. Abel says no more cookies. I've obviously had enough cookies. Abel is notorious for the consumption of cookies, and so I think this is a wise life choice that they are making at this point. What else is going on in the comments? Sriram is dying from online claustrophobia. I'm very sorry to hear it. We will all mourn your passing. Abel says the guys, less than 30% of messengers have liked the video. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you not doing? How are you not liking and subscribing and signing up for 11 Plus Lifeline? What's happening? Okay, right. Someone's saying that we need to stop talking and focus on the work. I think that's good advice to me at this point. So let's get back into it. So A is 5, B is 2, and C is 10. Find. Okay. So this is kind of like introduction to algebraic expressions, really. I think this one's quite simple. If you don't know what's going on here at all, I've got loads of videos on algebra. But this is kind of the easy end anyway. So 2a minus b, so a is 5. So let's write this out in numbers. So 2a is 25. What, 25? No, when we've got a number and a letter next to each other, we don't write the times, but the times is implied. 2a means 2 times a, and a is 5. 2, in fact, no, let's do it this way. Let's do it more formally. Equals 2 times 5 minus b is 2. Okay, and there are no brackets here, so we do division and multiplication first. So 2 times 5 is 10, minus 2 is 8. I didn't actually practice these beforehand, so I hope I'm not making horrific errors. Maybe I am, who knows? Never mind. Okay, c minus a minus b. So let's just write this out with the numerical values instead of the letters. So c is 10, 10 minus a is 5 minus 2. I don't know why I've done it underneath, I just have. That's how I roll, as I said earlier. Okay. Now, I haven't actually, we just put them in, I haven't thought about them at all. So, BIDMAS, do we have any brackets? No, yes, we do, we have brackets. So we do brackets first. Basic principle of BIDMAS, the brackets always win. So we have to do 5 minus 2 first. 5 minus 2 is, drumroll, 3. It's 10 minus 3, and that's 7, of course it is. 3b squared. So, interesting one. Let's think about this. So, 3, remember we need the times when we turn the letter into a numerical value. 3 times 2 is b squared. Now, is this, so 3 times 2, that's 6, and 6 squared is 36. Is that our answer? But if that were our answer, what would we have done? What would we have done? I'm trying to enunciate that rather tricky phrase. What would we have done? Difficult to say. That would mean that we did 3 times 2 first, and then we squared it. So we'd be dealing with the multiplication before we dealt with the indices in this problem. There's only one of them. The power, the exponential. The exponent, that's the one, the exponent, I think. Goodness me, it's a long time since I did proper maths, guys, long time. Okay, so that would be wrong because we're doing the multiplication before we deal with that thing up there. BIDMAS, brackets, indices. So we need to do this first. So we do 2 to the power of 2 first. So it's 3 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 2 times 2 is 4 equals 12. Okay, do you get that? In these tests at 11 plus, they often don't test you on the I part of BIDMAS or the O part of BIDMAS order. But it's important to remember that you do that first. Next thing up. Okay, this is the last question we're going to be looking at. 4 fours can be used to make the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 using plus, minus, times, and divide in brackets. This is shown below. In fact, you can get all the numbers up to something very big by doing this. And it could be an interesting exercise if you want to do a bit of practice to try getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and so on, just using these 4 fours. You can do it. Anyway, we have to get 17, 7, and 5 using all 4 fours and only these and brackets. Okay, so let's write some 4s in. 4, 4, 4, and 4. Okay, so how do we do this? Let's look for clues. What can we see about 17? Well, 17, it's a prime number. So we're not going to be making something and then multiplying it to get 17, because 17 doesn't have any factors apart from itself and 1. We can see it's near to 16. It's 1 more than 16. So one way to get this might be if we could make 16, which with 4s sounds plausible, and add 1 to it. Another way might be if we could make 20 and take away 3 from it. Those are both likely avenues, and it's worth having those first thoughts so that we have an idea of what to try out. So can we make a 16? Well, we can, because 16 is 4 times 4. And then from 16 we need to add 1. Is there any way of making 1 with 2 4s? Well, if I do 4 minus 4, that's going to be 0. It's not going to help us. 4 times 4 is another 16. 4 plus 4 is 8. 4 divided by 4. Anything divided by itself is 1. If you have 4 things and you divide those into 4 different groups, each of them is going to contain 1 thing. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So if we had 4 times 4, and then we added 4 divided by 4, we'll get 17. 16 plus 1 is 17. Do we need any brackets? Well, BIDMAS is going to tell us to do the multiplication and division first. So to do 4 times 4 and 4 divided by 4 first, and then add them together. So in fact, you do not need any brackets here. You've already got 17 with what I've written in that box. And in fact, if you were to add brackets, it is possible that a marker could penalise you, because although it wouldn't be wrong, it would maybe show some misunderstanding of BIDMAS. I think it would be harsh to penalise you for adding brackets. I wouldn't, but it's plausible. So if your answer works, if it conforms to the rules of BIDMAS and gives the right answer, leave it be. Okay, next one, 7. So how might we get 7? Well, 7, it's one less than 8. So it might be 8 minus 1. It's also 3 more than 4. So it could be 4 plus 3, if we can find a way to make 3. Or I suppose it could be 12 minus 5, because 12 is also in the 4 times table. So a few options there. So let's put our 4s in. Okay, by the way, if you've already worked out these two, you could do worse and have a think about this one, which is much trickier, I think. In fact, can I remember how to do it? Hope I can. Right, okay. I can't remember how to do this one, but I don't think it's so fiddly. So what can we do? Well, let's say we wanted to make 8. We'd do 4 plus 4. I'm just playing here. I've got my little sort of computer eraser so I can do this. If you're doing things like this in an exam, make sure you're working in pencil, please. Or do your rough working away to the side over here and so on. Don't put rough working in the box unless you're working in pencil, okay? And so this is really boring advice, but boy, it really matters. If you do your working in pencil in the box, let's say you put a plus and you want to change it into a minus, make sure that your plus is really lightly drawn and that you rub it out properly. Because if you do a plus in your pen, or if you do it in your pencil and then don't rub it out properly, and then you try to make it into a minus by kind of going like that, it's still a plus. And it's going to be marked as a plus. So do be careful with these things. It's in the broad bucket of what you might call exam technique. Right. 4 plus 4 is 8. And to get from 8 to 7, we'd want to take away 1. Well, we already know how to make 1 with 4s. We've done it up there. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we could do 4 plus 4 minus 4 divided by 4 will be 7. Do we need any brackets here? So we would do the division first, wouldn't we? Because of BIDMAS, we do division and multiplication before addition and subtraction. So we do 4 divided by 4, that would give us 1. So it's 4 plus 4 minus 1. So this already works. We don't need brackets. Once again, BIDMAS does the work for us. Okay, next one. Let's have a look at this. 4, 4, 4, 4. Okay, so again, what can we do with this? Now 5, that's a funny one. So we look at 5 and we go, well, it's a little bit like 7, isn't it? 7 was 1 more than 8 and 3 fewer than 12. 5, it is 1 more than 4 and it is also 3 fewer than 8. And so the natural thing to do is to start playing with that, though you might be getting certain clues from my voice. Okay, so can we make 4 and add 1 to it? So if we wanted to add 1, we could do 4 divided by 4. Can we make 4 from 2 4s? So can we do 4 times 4, 16, 4 minus 4? No, we're not going to do it. Not going to do it. Can we do it from the other end? Could we do 4 divided by 4? So we got 1. So like 1 times 4 is 4. No, I can't see a way to do it. What happens if we work to 8? So 4 plus 4 gives us 8. Can we minus 3 minus? There's no way to make 3 from these 2 4s. We're really stuck. We're stuck. And so we might look at this and go, this is not possible. There is no way to do it. Let's look back at our 5. What else do we know about 5? We know that 5 is 1 more than 4. We also know that it's 3 fewer than 8. But what else do we know about 5, people? Well, it's a prime number. So we're not going to multiply anything by something else to get 5. 5, unless you're timesing 1 by 5. We don't have 5 here. What else can we do with this? We know that 5 is half of 10. Can we make 10 with... If it's half of 10, so we could do 10 divided by 2. I know I don't have enough 4s going around here to do that stuff. It's not going to happen. We know that 5 is... Well, it's a third of 15, but good luck making 15 with... Good luck making a 3 or a 15. Again, we don't have enough 4s here to do this stuff, to make a 15, to make a 3, to divide them. It's a quarter of 20. What about that? Quarter of 20. So, oh, my pen has stopped without, thank you. Thank you, pen. So if we could make this into 20 and then divide it by 4, we'd have it. Can we make 20 out of 4, 4 and 4? So to get towards 20, we want to make it a lot bigger. So let's start off by multiplying. 4 times 4, that's 16. Plus 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 4 gives us 20. Divided by 4 gives us 5, and we're there. Now, last question, do we need these brackets? Let's get rid of them a sec. What happens with no brackets? So we have to do the division and multiplication first. So we've got 4 times 4 is 16, plus 4 divided by 4, which is 1. So we've got 16 plus 1, which is 17. So that is not right. And the key problem here, when you're thinking about where to place your brackets, is that at the moment we're doing this division first, but actually we want to divide by 4 at the end. So what we want to say to the maths user with whom we are engaging is that we want to make 20 and then divide it by 4. So we want to do all this stuff and then divide it by 4. And that's your answer. The rest of it works. 4 times 4 is 16. We do the multiplication first. Then we add 4, it gives us 20. Then we divide it by 4 and it gives us 5. Satisfying. The satisfaction of a maths problem resolved. Good, and that's the end of it. And then you've got, oh look, you've got promotional bump for my books. What could be more wonderful? It's clickable in the worksheet. You know, if you click on those, you go straight to that particular book, which I think is frankly revelatory and also a masterpiece of Adobe Acrobat skills that I hope you take the time to admire. Right, okay, onwards. This is the point when every week I think, what is my tip of the week? I forgot to write it down. Ah, yes, a good lead in to my tip of the week. It's a simple tip, but it's a really good, of course I think it's a good bit of advice. It's my advice, it's the best advice. I think it's a good bit of advice for any exam you might be preparing for. You in your preparation are going to come across quite a lot of individual things that you really want to remember. Certainly doing maths, you might think, crumbs. Does anyone say crumbs? Maybe you do. You might say, crumbs, I really need to remember the formula for the area of the triangle, which is half times the length of the base times the perpendicular height. And you might want to remember it's the perpendicular height and not the length of the side at that angle. Okay? And you think, well, how am I going to, I keep forgetting this, how do I remember it? So you jot it down somewhere. You'll sketch of a triangle, you do a dotted line for the perpendicular heart. Heart? Perpendicular heart? It's Valentine's Day. It's the day of perpendicular hearts. The perpendicular height. So you do a little sketch and you jot it down and then you lose the bit of paper. But you do not lose the bit of paper. In fact, that's the twist in this story because you have a special place where you write this down. And it's not your maths book, but you realise there are going to be certain facts that you need to remember for your 11+. You repeatedly misspell the word necessary. And because necessary is quite a common word, it's necessary, that you learn the spelling. And so this also needs to be written down somewhere. And when you're doing creative writing, you forget what the 5 senses are that Robert Lomax is always telling you to use in a varied and interesting fashion in your writing. So there are all these things and they get scattered on bits of paper. No, they don't. Because you have a place where you write these things down. My tip of the week, after all that build-up, is very simple. Have a little notebook that you keep for the express purpose of writing down specific facts that you need to memorise for your exam. And when you've got all the things there, you could just have a look through it, you know, every couple of days as you go through your preparation, check over these facts, get them nice and clear in your mind. And then when the exam comes around, they'll all be there, so you know where to go to revise them, but also they'll already be pretty well cemented because you'll have kept going through them. And that's a lot better than just having loads of things scattered on bits of paper. Or, the alternative, assuming that you're just going to memorize everything just by doing practice. That's not the way that memory works for most people. A lot of things you will learn just by doing lots of practice, but some things it's worth the effort of recording them and making the effort to systematically memorize them. And for that, have a little notebook in which you put all these little facts. That's your tip of the week. Okay, and now we move on to your questions. People are talking about Grigri, the kitten. So while your questions come in, give me a second. I'm just going to see if I can find Grigri, and then Grigri and I can answer the questions together. Are you there, Grishka? Where are you? Oh, there he is. Oh, he's right next to me on the chair. I did not realise. Here he is. All right. He was almost participating. So we started with an enormous cat, and now we've got a very tiny cat. Hello, tiny cat. All right, Grigri is going to help me answer your questions until he runs off. Louise, Robert, did you get your cat a Valentine's Day present and card? She deserves it. They're both boys, so it wouldn't be she deserving it, it'd be him deserving it. For all kinds of reasons, I'm not going to go into here, I do feel that getting Valentine's presents for cats would be a slightly peculiar choice, but each to their own. Someone said something about an otter, but I lost it. Sorry about that. What is the most efficient thing to do 1 month before the exam? Definitely, put that away, it's rude. Definitely, he's put him, goodness me. Definitely start preparing for your 11 plus, I would say, if you haven't already. Look, it was a serious question in there and I should take it seriously. What things might change in the last month? Well, one thing I think in particular is that around this time, if you haven't already, you're going to want to start doing some timed practice. So up to that point, I do encourage people until the last, let's say, 8 weeks or so before their exam, not to do too much time-limited practice, because when you're working with time limits, you just tend to make the same mistakes faster and faster, but to work slowly and carefully and learn things. But in those last couple of months, let's say, that is the time to be doing timed practice, get used to timing, and also crucially, as I often say, work out what the particular issues are that cause you to slow down and lose track of your exam timing. So that's one thing that you might do. It's also, you said 1 month before, let's go back to that, so 1 month before your exam will be a very good time to sort of review your learning and say, right, everything I've done here, what are the areas which areas are still a little weak? So where now can I go back and really concentrate on covering some gaps? Because you might not have thought about that quite so systematically up to that point. You don't want to find out 3 days before your exam that there's something you're really weak on that you didn't realise. So it's a chance to go through look at a lot of papers that you've done in the past and say, so that's a mistake I made. Would I still make that mistake now? And if the answer is yes, then you need to do some revision on that topic. Do I still make that spelling mistake? If the answer is yes, it's time to really systematically learn that spelling so you won't keep making the mistake. Am I still making a horrific mess of my 7 times table? If yes, now is the time to deal with that. So I think they're the kind of things that you might productively do a month out from your exam. Good question. Miriam says, can your next video be on creative writing? I could do every video on creative writing. It's certainly the thing that I most enjoy, but I did do creative writing last week. And so probably my next video will be on something different. Grigori and Dimitri are cute, says somebody. Indeed. He's also he's a hooligan, Grigori. We were actually warned by the breeder when we went along and there was this litter of kittens and we had to, choose whether we wanted one and which one we were going to take. And he was actually called Boris at the time. And we told people it was called Boris, and everybody said, oh, you've named him after Boris Johnson. And then we very quickly decided not to call him Boris, or Boris, as I think you'd say it in Russian. Correct me if I'm wrong, Russians out there. Boris. I thought it was a nice cat name, but anyway. So then he became Grigori. I've lost track of what the question was, sorry. Anyway, I was just history of Grigori's name, but we call him Grigori, partly because we like going climbing, and a Grigori is a little bit of, I can't show you because it's in the car, but anyway, a Grigori is a a device that you use when you're climbing, or it's one device you can use when climbing, that is very useful for not dying, and I'm very keen on not dying, so use a gree-gree. Anyway, this gree-gree is oh yes, I know. We were warned by the breeder that he was a complete hooligan, and he is. Although last lesson he knocked over a pot plant just off camera, he hasn't done that yet today, so there is hope. Right, I should go back to answering your questions and not talking rubbish about cats. Sorry. Goodness me, someone says, Robert, I have an important question. Well, I better answer this then. How long should you take a break off studying, and should I study hard every day in the summer holiday? How long should you take a break off studying? Long enough that you feel properly rested and you remind yourself that life is not just learning, but not so long that you're really forgetting things or falling behind. It depends on the person. It really depends. It's a very difficult question as well, because my experience of learning things is actually the most effective way to learn is to allow yourself to forget a little bit sometimes. So to learn something well, then forget it a bit, and then have to relearn it a bit, although not completely from scratch, and then things really sink in, actually better than if you just learn them steadily all through. I find that with languages. I'll go into a sort of flurry of doing loads of language study, and then I'll lose motivation, and then a few months later I'll do loads more again. And I actually think that works for me quite well, because I forget and relearn, and then things really imprint a bit better. So breaks can be good. You just need to judge how long is too long. Should I study hard every day in the summer holiday? Well, I wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't, because I think that days off are really important. You know, your brain needs time to forget about things, and also you emotionally need time to remind yourself that there's more to life than the, insert rude word, 11 plus, and you should enjoy life, because if you become one of these people who just never takes a break, there's always something important in your future. Now it's the 11 plus, then it'll be something else, then it'll be something else, and you've got to learn to take time off. Right, philosophical answer to your question. Not very clear, so you need to judge it for yourself. But yeah, definitely take days off. How long to take off, you need to judge based on your learning style. What is the best study routine for people who want to go to grammar schools? I don't think it's different whether you go to grammar or independent schools, really. I think it's similar to what I just said there, really. It's about finding rhythms that work well for you and sticking to them. One of the things about 11 plus is that, let's say you did an 8 plus exam, you were a teeny weeny tiny thing when you were preparing for that, and probably your parents basically told you when to study, and that's when you studied. But now you're old enough that you actually know yourself a bit better, you've got more maturity, and you can judge what amount of work is useful for you. That doesn't mean you should ignore your parents when they tell you to study, absolutely not. But it means that you can work out what kind of study routine is most effective for you, and how many days, how long really works, how often you need a break, and talk about it with your parents, work it out with them, and find a study routine that's effective for you. I don't think that's anything to do with whether you're going to grammar schools or whatever. So I've got itchy nose. Whenever I hold a cat, I just get itchiness here. It's not helped by the fact that I should have shaved, and so bits of cat fur stick. It's horrible. Trouble is, I've said this before, I hate having facial hair. It's disgusting. It feels horrible, but I hate shaving as well. And then after that I get rashes, and it's just terrible. You girls out there, you have it much easier. Okay. How to find the volume of a triangular prism. Wrong lesson. It's not really. I don't think it's likely to come up in. Is it going to come up in 11 plus? I'm not sure. Anyway, the answer is pretty simple, which is you, with any prism, so something that repeats through, basically find the area of the end and then multiply it by the depth, essentially. So it's the area of the triangle and then how long or how deep is your prism. That's basically what it comes down to. Ho, ho, ho. What is the best studying technique? Definitely watching the videos on the Easy 11 Plus YouTube channel. You can't go wrong with that. What are your hobbies, Robert? Just doing these videos, basically. As soon as the video ends each Tuesday, I start crying, and I really stop crying about 10 minutes before I start the lesson the following Tuesday, frankly, with very few intervals. So, yeah. Robert, guess the flag, DJ. Maybe that's just my chat software that's not showing whenever you post it. I don't know. Lots of people writing their questions are important now. Wubix Lube says, what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? It largely comes down to whether you are British or American. How many people on average compete in any 11 plus schools? It's like an 11 plus maths question. It completely depends on the school. I mean, there are some schools where you've got sort of, 15 people competing for every place. It's ridiculous. And some schools are not particularly competitive. It depends. It depends. Generally, you've got a worse time of it if you're in London, I'm sorry to say. Can you do Newport Girls test, please? Robert, it is important. I can't do that test because I'm neither 10 nor a girl, but... I mean, if they publish a past paper, then I could maybe do a video on it, but I think it's unlikely that they do. I think they're probably just doing a CEM or GL test, which I have covered in lots of other videos, I should say. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to finish soon. Adkvixi, I don't know how to pronounce your name, saying, what breed is Dimitri? Mine is Siberian. But if you have a Siberian cat, you should recognise what Dimitri is, because of course Dimitri is also a Siberian. Look at the beard. I can't do a proper beard. I'm just, I'm a pathetic attempt at, a male of the species. Dimitri is a bearded wonder and a classic Siberian. You can tell the difference. The other cat looks quite similar as the Maine Coon, but they have these quite sort of narrow eyes like that, whereas the Siberians have the big round soulful eyes. That's the way you can spot the difference. Right, I'm going to finish this soon because we've been going on for plenty long enough and people are spamming me. Someone said, can I have a pen? You can if you become an Easy 11 Plus channel member. Click join under any video. Alright guys, that will do for today. And so the music starts playing and you all go, yes, freedom. Look, it's been fantastic to have you. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson on BIDMAS. I hope you've enjoyed my very professional answers to your very serious questions. I would lift up a cat to say goodbye, but they've run off very wisely. So look, check out 11 Plus Lifeline. It could change your life, and for the better, of course. And yeah, apart from that, I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday for a lesson on something else. Probably comprehension, I would think at this point. I haven't done that for a little bit. All right, guys. Bye-bye. Oh, Dimitri. So glad we're rid of them. Yeah, I know. They're terrible, aren't they? The comments.